can a mountain exist before it's washed out to sea? Yes, and how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Oh, how many times can a man turn his head pretending he just doesn't see? Oh, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, the answer, my friend, blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Reflecting on a train trip he took across the country many years ago, the poet Carl Sandburg wrote, "I am riding on a limited express, one of the crack trains of this nation, hurtling across the prairie into blue haze and dark air. Go 15 all-steel coaches, holding 1,000 people. All the coaches shall be scrap and rust. And all the men and women laughing in the diners and sleepers shall pass to ashes. I ask a man in the smoker where he's going, and he answers, Omaha." Now, what's always haunted me about this poem is how he highlights life's impermanence. He says, all these big, heavy, powerful steel coaches shall be scrap and rust. And all the men and women laughing in the diners and the sleepers shall pass to ashes. And then he asks, in the awareness of this incredible impermanence, where are you going? And the man answers, Omaha. Now, juxtaposed to our utter mortality, it seems like a pointless destination. And in 1916, when this poem was written, Omaha had already lost its place as the capital of Nebraska, and it was a perfect metaphor for a worthless and meaningless destination. Now imagine, he could have just as easily used Tulsa, perhaps, except right around then we were discovering oil here in Oklahoma. But life is fleeting, precious, impermanent, and significant. Where are you going? Omaha? It begs the question. Here we are this morning, you and I, hurtling across the prairie of our lives. Where are you going? Seems like an appropriate question to raise in church. But what is it that makes this a church anyway? You might be asking yourself, especially if you're here for the very first time. You might be wondering why there isn't all this recitation about faith in God. You might be missing all the talk about knowing Jesus as a personal Savior. Where are all the assurances about immortality? Where are the firm commands about how to live a good life and how to live God's will? Instead, we're singing, I haven't found what I'm looking for. Imagine what the world could be. What about some instructions, at least, in how to win a place in the world to come? I mean, that's what religion is supposed to be about, right? But today, we sit in a very different kind of community. This is a place where your questions and your doubts are welcome. A place where we actually cherish our doubts. It's a place where we trust that truth is strong enough to withstand our interrogations. A place where we seek to discover an authentic faith, a free faith, an authentic way of living. Now, if you've come here because your spouse or your neighbor or your parents or your children dragged you here, and you're currently satisfied with your current church, its teachings, its traditions, or your current practices on Sunday morning, then this message might not have much meaning for you. But, if you've never wrestled with doubts about your faith, never been tempted to remain silent during the recitation of a creed, if you've never been tempted to leave your head unbowed during a prayer, and never been thrown out of a Sunday school class for asking too many questions, if the Bible alone never seemed too inadequate to meet your real needs and your real yearnings, then this service might not mean very much to you. But if you came here because you can no longer set your questions aside, and you heard that this is a place where you can come seeking answers, if you came because you want to wrestle with your doubts like Jacob wrestled with the angel and hold on to them until they bless you, then you've found the right place. If you want to make sure that you're not just on a train to Omaha, and if you want to explore how to live with integrity and purpose in a world of uncertainty, then you're exactly where you're meant to be right now. Then again, you might be here because you're going through a major life change. A death, a divorce, a new job, or a feeling that it's time to take a new course for your life. However and why ever you got on this train this morning, I want to offer you a few things to consider as you chart this course through uncertain times and an uncertain world and a life that is filled with ambiguity and unknowns and so many questions. This is the beginning of a 10-week summer series on the topic of life beyond certainty. So these are just a few initial steps, but we'll continue beyond this Sunday. James Luther Adams said, an authentic faith should be personal, but not private. Now, what does that mean? It means that each of us has our own personal understandings and experiences and our own approach to the big questions of life and death and purpose. Our answers to these questions are very personal to each one of us. Yet an authentic and a loving faith cannot be private in the sense that a life of love and purpose is not selfish or self-centered. It's not something we keep to ourselves. It's not meant to cause us to retreat from the world, but rather to put our love and our values into action. It's a faith that is shaped by history and that shapes history in return. We live in a time of terrorism, nuclear weapons, environmental catastrophes, wars, mass shootings, immense poverty, and immense pain coming from all of these things. A private faith that is only expressed on Sunday mornings or that lives on a mountaintop somewhere, or that's kept within the confines of one's own personal life and beliefs and thoughts, is a sham. A loving faith is a lived faith. Now, someone might ask, what does all this really have to do with faith anyway? Doesn't faith have to do with believing in something that we cannot see or feel or prove? To which I say, it's faith in the idea that no act of kindness is ever wasted, even if we can't see the results. It's a faith that plants trees knowing that we will not sit under their shade. It's a faith that fights for a cause even when there's no guarantee that we're going to win. It's a faith of grandparents who give all that they can for their grandchildren, even though they rarely see how their lives turn out. It's the faith of teachers who plant seeds in children. Dr. John Izu tells a story about a woman named Susan in a book titled The Second Innocence. Susan used to work at a nursing home, and where she met another woman who also worked there. And this colleague of hers was one of those people who never seemed to be able to keep her life together. She was always having crises and money troubles and losing jobs, and she even developed a drug problem. And she couldn't seem to quit. This woman was also a single mother with 2 twin girls, and a few times the girls were taken away from her by the county's family services due to parental neglect. Susan had befriended the woman when they worked together and stayed in touch with her even after she was fired. One day, Susan got a phone call from the mother who sounded panicked. Her 7-year-old twin daughters were going to a school dance, and they had nothing to wear, and she had no money to buy them dresses. Susan invited the woman over and said, let's go to the store and let's buy some fabric and make a couple of dresses. Susan recounts the experience and remembers that the woman was high on something, and she could hardly keep her hands from shaking. All the woman could do to help was to pin the fabric together. But they eventually finished and had time to take a picture of the girls in their new green dresses. A month or more later, the woman and her daughters moved away, and years passed before Susan ever saw them again. One day, 16 years later, Susan bumped into the woman, and she was beautifully dressed and was looking really healthy. After a hug, Susan asked what had happened to her and to her twins. The woman explained that she'd gone back to school to become a nurse. One of her girls just graduated from college, and the other had a great job. And she explained, I've just become a grandmother. And then she said, it's so great to see you, because you're a large part of the reason that my life turned out this way. You see, after we fell out of touch, I never lost my girls again, never lost a job again, and I got off drugs for good. She went on, do you remember that photograph we took that night of the school dance? For 10 years, I've kept that photograph. For 10 years, I kept that photograph on my refrigerator, and every time it got tough, at work, at home, with temptations, I would just look at that photo and tell myself, if you can make those green dresses, you can get through this. And every time I thought of quitting, the photograph helped me believe in myself. Susan, if it were not for you, I don't know what would have become of me. No act of kindness is ever wasted. Our actions matter even though we can't always see the results. There's a faith in that. Which brings me back to the question that we began with. Knowing what we know about life and death and impermanence of it all, where are we headed? Now, some religions teach us that we're headed towards apocalypse or the rapture or judgment day. In a free, authentic faith, there's an idea that where humanity is headed is determined in no small part by the choices that we make in the present. We certainly don't control all things, that's for sure. But we have agency and responsibility to influence human history and the direction of our own lives. So the outcome of where humanity is headed is determined by what we do. So what we do matters. You know, if certain decisions were made differently, there'd be Nazi flag flying over the White House. What we do matters. How we live our faith, how we live our belief matters. We may have a religion that's very personal, but it's not private. The South might have won the Civil War if certain decisions weren't made. The choices we make, the things we do, the things we pay attention to matter. My colleague, Laurel Hallman, once recounted an old Hasidic Jewish story of a Polish man who sees a steam engine for the first time. In trying to describe this unusual phenomenon to others, the man explained there was one hot one, one pulling, and many cold ones. My hope for you and for this community is that we're a hot one. And that we're using our lives to pull this city and this country and this world toward greater love and justice and unity and understanding. Because it matters what we do. In so many ways, the world is crying out for a new way of imagining life. And that's what we're about. That's what we're doing here. And it matters. Imagine what could happen if we strengthen this free faith. We have all the ingredients. An authentic faith is not grounded in certainty. It's personal, but not private. It cares about where we're heading. It trusts that no act of kindness is ever wasted. I'll tell you, I'm glad that I'm not on this train all by myself. This world is crying out. And it needs new ways to imagine how to live. Now, I'm not headed to Omaha, literally or figuratively. I'm staying right here, where we are, and I plan to be a hot one. And I hope that you do too. Because the answers may not be certain, but they are blowing in the wind. Thank you.
We're so happy you're visiting with us online today. We love connecting with people all across the country and around the world, sharing our powerful message of love beyond belief.
There's something new happening here. You can now join All Souls as a virtual member. Our virtual membership is designed for friends who live outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and who want to engage with All Souls in a meaningful way.
You can be part of an expanding family, a global family really, wherever you are. If you live in Oklahoma,
Ohio,
or Orange County, California,
Canada,
or Cameroon. By becoming a virtual member, you'll be able to deepen your connections with members and friends here in Tulsa and with members wherever you are.
Each week, you'll receive special All Souls content tailored for you, our virtual members. Virtual members have access to pastoral care, to personal prayers, and also receive invitations to exclusive web events.
You can learn more, and if you're ready, you can become a virtual member today by visiting allsoulschurch.org/virtual membership.
We're grateful our ministries are having a positive impact on your life, and we want to share the good news of love beyond belief with more and more people. So no matter what, we need your support to keep this ministry growing and thriving, so please consider making a gift today. You can do so by texting
LOVEBB for Love Beyond Belief to 73256 or simply visit our website. You are a blessing in our lives. May you be blessed
and be a blessing.